Hi. Today's Challenge Accepted episode is a conversation between Piotr and Tobias Ouwejan, the lead architect for commerce at SAP. After a decade of working with customers and partners on Hybris commerce implementations, Tobias moved to the product team where he joined the enterprise architects team, which he is now leading. Today, Piotr speaks to Tobias about the challenge of implementing the Spartacus project, the application that allows you to build your own branded JavaScript-based storefront for SAP Commerce Cloud. Let's begin.
Hello everyone. With the Challenge Accepted series of our podcast, we are presenting you people who are not afraid of questioning the status quo. In this episode, we are going to talk about shifting the development paradigm, contending with the established standards to get ahead of the market. And my guest is Tobias Ouwejan. Hello Tobias. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Hey Piotr, thank you very much for being here. It's an honor and I'm actually looking forward to this.
Awesome. Maybe we start with your background. So if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and what actually the Spartacus project is, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Tobias. I live in the Netherlands with my family. And I guess I'm passionate about software development and especially front-end. It's been a long time. I started totally different career. But I have been always super excited about front-end technology. And this is why I started Spartacus a few years back. Spartacus is a front-end framework. It's all about a decoupled JavaScript storefront, what you can use to build your store front for SAP Commerce Cloud.
Right. Perfect. Thank you for this introduction. I'm going to ask you a lot more questions about Spartacus in a moment. But first, let me ask you, how did your career in the software development started actually?
Yeah, well, as I already said, right, I started as a graphical designer. Originally, this was really about print. I mean, this was like mid-90s. Print was really big by then.
Right.
And I was educated as a graphical designer. I have two parents who are both artists, so I was kind of, I had to go in this direction anyway, right?
Yeah,
there was no choice for
business.
me.
Yes.
But then working at these agencies, I actually started to discover digital, all kinds of digital. My first job was crazy. I worked at a super small company. And whatever our customers wanted us to do, we were doing it. Like we were exploring the early web. We were exploring like technologies like Macromedia Director. I'm not even sure if you know that one.
Yeah, I remember
before
it.
Macromedia Flash. Yeah. And we were even making games and CD-ROMs and like 3D animations and 3D graphics and then tried to put it on the web. And so it was very excited. We didn't make a lot of money actually. It was more about creating fun and cool things. But I think this set for me the career pretty well because I got this kind of nature to just dive in things and to learn new things and being a modern web developer. I'm still doing that and nothing has changed.
Yeah, exactly.
So it took a bit before I moved to a larger corporate, and then I was more getting formally the role of architect or PM. And I think this is, I mean, actually during that time with agencies, I became a developer, you could say, but it was never my former role. It was more my kind of side project, and customers would just ask me to build some agency work.
That's interesting. So you started as a kind of interactive agency work, right? Being focused on UI, graphics, interactions, like seemingly doing the progress into more development roles, right? But how you got into Hybris before Hybris is now SAP Commerce Cloud, but before it was Hybris? How you get there to e-commerce? Is it totally different? Like maybe not totally, but slightly different.
It's definitely different. Yeah. I mean, it took a bit of time. So at one point in time, I got a new job at a smaller company, and formally I would become the kind of project manager for database publishing projects.
Okay.
And this is where I could really leverage both my skills from the graphical business, understanding what is print and how would you produce something automatically in print. I could leverage my technical skills because I had done some database publishing workflow projects with XML to book, for example. And I could also leverage my project management skills. But actually, the first project was all about a customer who needed a commerce solution at the end.
Okay.
They also needed this print automation. But while we're doing this project, and I was basically, it was very waterfall-y at that point in time. But I was building the functional specs with the customer, and the commerce piece popped up all the time.
Right.
And at the end of the day, doing both print automation and commerce was too expensive for the customer, basically, for the project. So we decided to start with commerce. And that's actually where we found Hybris as a company in Munich at that point in time. We start talking, and then we kind of selected this solution, this platform, to build this project.
Right.
So this was 2007, I believe, 2008. Early days.
Early days of the platform.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Hybris was maybe 60 people by then.
Wow. But actually, okay, you selected for the project. Then you probably managed to work on this project, having some experience, hands-on experience. And how you joined the company itself, the Hybris company?
Yeah, so I ran a few projects, and then Hybris asked me to join them in 2011 as a consultant. So it's obviously, it was an ecosystem. You had this kind of local team in the Netherlands, and they had like the annual events, and so you come across people. And I guess I did a few good projects, which wasn't
That's why
not
they
always the
you,
standard, right? It was quite challenging.
Awesome.
Yeah, so and the first project was really an interesting one. If you think back, it was at that point in time, there was nothing like a storefront actually, because Hybris was a platform, it was a framework. So there was not a standard UI. Later on, we got this so-called accelerator, which was a kind of a template for the front end. Was not around at that point in time. Also, we were doing B2B, and we did massive customizations to the platform. And we actually delivered this in like 3-4 months. So it was really fast development at that point in time.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is where I've done something right, and that put me on the picture, I guess. It's also interesting to know that this my very first project was a complete single-page application for this B2B customer.
In 2008?
Yes, no one was actually asking for that. So I guess it was my own pet project. But I was all about building this very nice experience for the customer. And it was totally different from today. I mean, I'm not even sure if JSON was around, for example, but we certainly didn't have an API. We were just exposing our HTML, and we were then just wrapping the HTML in with JavaScript.
Right. So it was HTML rendered server side and just
Correct. Well, no, it was actually client side rendered. So it was also server side. So you had like a full server side rendered page, but as soon as you would land at the page, we would then in JavaScript get the fragments from the backend, HTML fragments, and would just write them in the DOM.
Which framework had you used then?
So I think that was Prototype. I'm not sure if you remember.
Yes.
It was around, I think, mid 2005 or something.
Yeah, it was pretty popular back then. Then jQuery took over.
Yeah, I did some more tools in between as well, I think.
Yeah. So when you joined the Hybris company, how your daily job looked like the first projects? What were you doing actually on a daily basis?
So as a consultant, your job is to, at that point in time, the Hybris consultant would step in for different reasons. So some customers would like you to do some QA of the work being done by partners, because Hybris had this partner model where partners would deliver the projects. Or you would step in as the expert as things become complicated or unknown, right? If there's like new modules in the projects and the partner would not have touched it before, or like there are various reasons. But most assignments that I personally did was all about short assignments. basically means you come into a project maybe for 2-3 days or 2-3 weeks, and that's about it. And you help steering the project to a certain direction. And then there was this whole kind of notion of more formal code reviews and architecture reviews and all this stuff.
Okay, that's amazing. So I guess it was around 2011 or something like this, right? So how did the e-commerce market differ from what we have now then?
Yeah, it's been a lot of change, I would say. I mean, for sure, Hybris was a really strong leader. You know, as an employee working there, it was like good vibes, right?
Yeah.
A lot of parties and everything was possible, etc. So it's been a really great time. But from a software point of view, it was a monolithic stack, right? Which wasn't so much a concern by then. Like the notion of not having this deep coupled JavaScript storefront, for example. For me personally, that was like a bummer, and I didn't like it so much. But there was no one in the market asking for this. It was kind of quite normal that you would have this monolithic stack, and it was more about what features do you have.
And you had also
customers would.
You had also, sorry for interrupting you, but you had also all sort of those accelerators, right? That are
not even in 2011. So I remember when I joined, there was no storefront, and during my interview, we were talking about it. So like the question that was asked me was saying like, do you think we should have something like an accelerator?
Okay.
Without naming it, I think the name wasn't invented, but. And it didn't took so long before it was there actually. So I think in the year I started, that initiative was started. So soon enough we would have that accelerator, and this was actually a template approach.
Okay.
Yes, it was a template front end. Customers like to use it, and they've been using it a lot. And it took a bit of time before we realized that the template approach had a number of disadvantages.
Right.
And as I said, decoupled storefronts were not around. And if you look back and look at the today market, there's so many change, right? Like the monolithic approach is, I mean, although quite a few vendors still have that, we all know we should move away from that and should decouple platforms into smaller pieces, which can be more adapt change faster.
Yes. Can you point out some common pain points merchants, agencies were facing implementing e-commerce stores? You already said about templates. What else?
Yeah, and maybe I would love to talk a little bit more about the template. So why is it so difficult if you have this template-based approach? Because what we do currently today with Spartacus is one of the responses to this pain point. So the template-based approach has a really has an advantage, because basically what you deliver is a kind of ready storefront, and you can change from there. So you get it as an open source template, and you can start hacking away with it, right? You're adding features, you're changing features, etc., which is great. And it's super nice. The disadvantage clearly is that while you're amending the template and adding your features in it as a project, at the same time the product team is going to improve the template in parallel.
Yeah.
And at the time, SAP had acquired Hybris, and there was like a multitude of additional modules and things that would integrate with that template.
Right.
So the template would not. It wasn't only about extending features or adding features. It was also integrating all those modules from other teams.
Yes.
And then let's say the project is 1 year on its way or 2 years. It will try to upgrade to the new template. And this was quite horrible, because there's one web application, and you only have one piece of code that you need to merge. So that was when you talk about template, this was really difficult. Other challenges, I mean, for sure we had this kind of full Java-based platform, and so it's an area where agencies wouldn't be comfortable. So you have this kind of split between what we today would say back and the front end, but at that point that was like there was like one partner doing the full project, but then had to outsource things to an agency, for example, or try to merge agency work into it. And especially later on, when agencies were building more mature JavaScript-based solutions, became more and more painful, as the Java guys wouldn't be so comfortable and to do this.
Yeah.
And obviously you have this tightly coupling with the platform, so you have like one stack that you need to develop and deploy. So this results in long deployment cycles, I would say. Like if you want to add a little tiny feature to the front end, the business asks for that, then you basically need to go through a full development cycle, including QA gates and all the stuff.
Okay.
So and at the end you have other challenges like scalability challenges with this monolithic approach and tight coupling. So more and more issues are there.
Yeah, that's well said. In the end, all those obstacles leads to huge, business issues. I mean, move deadlines and overrun budgets, and so on and so on. So maybe if we already discussed the challenges, maybe you could tell us about the success factors, positive aspects you saw for merchants running shops. Before Spartacus,
yeah. I mean, the DNA of Hybris basically was all about extensibility,
right?
And this has been key to the success. And maybe nowadays you see more and more commodity around commerce, and maybe extensibility isn't that important anymore, although I still believe in that. But I think this is definitely the success which we had. And because basically if let's say the product wouldn't have a feature, then the partner could build that feature, and the customer would still have the feature, right? And Hybris was extensible from every angle, basically.
Right.
Whether it was the data model or an integration or the business logic or what have you. So I would definitely say that was key to the success.
Perfect. So the whole ecosystem was working on the once project success, right? Because you can find the ready-made modules extensions, but even if you haven't found it, you always could have created your own using extensibility features of the platform itself. That's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So we are getting to the Spartacus project, which is core of our discussion today. So. I already asked you about the challenges, success factors, but maybe let us know more how this idea of this decoupled frontend originated.
Okay. Yeah. So I told you that I worked as a consultant, right? And I was actually I was ending up as a global in a global role in the consulting team, and I was driving best practices. And we were driving this by doing a lot of innovation projects with consultants around the world.
Right.
So we would have a nice budget for consultants to work maybe 5 days on like some funky integration or what have you. Like anything was possible, and we would just ask in return for a write-up in a document and a Git repo. So consultants were also quite amazed by this because they could do really nice things for a few days. And this was really great, nice time, but I was missing the code myself a bit, right? And I said to my colleague who joined me in that role, saying, well, maybe we should do some innovation ourselves as well.
Right.
And this is actually where I built the initial prototype of Spartacus. And with that, I was trying to address all those pain points, right? We just discussed, like, it's about this new UX patterns, like single page application from the start, the ability to add PWA features, having this decoupled architecture so you can scale it separately, you can deploy it separately. And at that point in time, I wasn't even thinking about open source, to be honest. But that soon after that, we start moving into the direction of open source. It wasn't Spartacus became something that agencies could actually work on directly.
Right.
And we were starting to make it in such a way that it was a library or a set of libraries rather than a template-based application.
So totally different approach than the previous accelerator-based.
Very different, but also very complex, right? Because you're addressing so many different things.
Yes.
And if you look at the modern JavaScript application, it's almost again a monolith, right? Like you have this state management layer, which is kind of your database, and you have like modules, and so you're actually addressing soon enough the same problems that we did 10 years ago.
Nice. So, you were working as a consultant, and you use your R&D time to do a POC of this, front end, right?
Well, I mean, I was in this global role by then, so I didn't do direct consulting anymore. So it wasn't. It was just my job actually to drive innovation, and this was, I guess, two things, right? In the consulting team, you want to share your knowledge, but we also were keen to provide feedback to the product team.
Right.
So I actually had the opportunity to then do a presentation of Spartacus at our global summit in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And this is where the product team asked me to do this one because they felt definitely that this was the direction for the storefronts.
Nice. So can I say that you pitched this project, and actually in the end, the company figure out that it's worth investing to. So you move a little bit your role from professional services into product business, right? Because
pretty much. Yeah.
How was this change for you? How was this change for you?
It was great. I mean, I like change. So I'm always excited if something changes because this gives you new opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, I already. I mean, I definitely want to do this because Spartacus was my baby, right?
Yeah.
And I already gave it away to the product team, saying, okay, you can use this as a starting point, or you can use it as an inspiration, or what have you. And then the product team actually asked me to join as an architect and to build out this product.
Oh, right.
And so it's your baby, right? So you care about it and you want to build it out, and you also when I built it, I had like a lot of dreams about it, right? And a lot of ideas, and so many things I didn't do because the prototype was just a few weeks of work. So there was so much I could think of. So I was super excited, and also I wasn't used to stay in the same company for that long time. I'm still at it, by the way.
Right.
So changing role is quite important for me then, right? If you are so long in the same company, you want to do
absolutely
another gig every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like doing something totally different. So I can imagine that it kept you at SAP for much longer than you maybe even expected joining the company.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us, what were the initial goals for the project, and what was your key challenge?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the point that they made the prototype, then for sure, like I said, was the goal to inspire the product team and to give them some feedback on the direction that I thought was important. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to give it to customers, right? That they have a new kind of decoupled storefront that they can use to do their projects. I think the key challenge at the end was we were changing so many things. So you're kind of starting from scratch. And I think one of the challenges was to find the right people to deliver this.
Right.
So we obviously had this team or teams who were building the accelerator, and this was the right team to build Spartacus. But they had to go through quite a change, right? Because they were building in Spring MVC and Java, and they had to not only change technology, but it's also a different way of thinking, and there's so many changes. So I think for sure that was one of the key challenges, I would say.
The change management, right? Finding the right people, but also changing the way the people you have. They were very skilled guys and motivated, but they needed to change the way they think about building the software.
Exactly, and it's not like I said, it's not only technology. If you think about this JavaScript storefront, it's like it has this state management layer. And it has like a lot of new UX patterns you want to do. So it's very different from producing an HTML component in the past to a component that fits in a single-page application architecture. So I think, it's just a real new thing we were building. And also, I think when I left or when I delivered this prototype, like I said, there were so many things unfinished. Yeah. So I was also a bit worried about, okay, who's taking this over? Right. This was, like we talked before, this was for me quite nice to be in this role, so I could drive it forward.
Awesome. So can you say that you accomplished all your goals that you have starting this project?
I think we did. Yes, we were. To fit this gap with expertise in the company, we reached out to Devante to find a team who could work with us, because we needed some skilled JavaScript folks and kind of look in how can we ramp up our own team. And yeah, for sure, we accomplished that. Awesome. I'm not saying we don't still have challenges, right? There's like so many things we can improve and want to do, but yeah.
Okay, so how did you cope with those challenges?
Maybe if we talk about this skill thing or how we worked with the team. One of the things, and we were working together with Devante to find a team who was both experienced in JavaScript as well as experienced with commerce,
right?
As well as experience with open source and all that stuff. So this was working out really well actually, because we needed some time to build the team and to get the knowledge. And with this model, we actually had two teams who are going to help each other, and, inspire each other, and this is what we still do till today, right? We have in the core Spartacus, we have those two teams.
Yeah, that's great, and I also think that this open source model for developing the software like organically empowers this way of cooperation with other partners, which is great. Before I get into more questions about the Spartacus as a product, I already asked you some questions about Spartacus as a project, like how you started. Then I will ask you about the product. But first, I think that for our listeners who are working at huge enterprises very often, would be very useful to hear what was your recipe to actually incubate and start this startup-like project inside a very large corporation that SAP is. So what was your recipe for that, for this change?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't consider myself an expert in that. I've been in another larger corporate where we had this kind of innovative project. And that one, and I don't need to talk about that one too much, but that one didn't really work out. And what I learned from then is all about timing, because you can have a really great innovation, but time might not be the right time, right? It might not be the right time. It might be too early.
Exactly. Yes.
So timing for sure is key. Every enterprise needs innovation, and also I think another key is that you can work in isolation. So you need to have some time in isolation before you are troubled with all the processes that the corporate has. And I guess it requires some smart juggling. When do you start to cooperate with the larger organization again?
Right.
But I'm afraid I don't have the right recipe there. I'm just thinking out loud at the moment.
I guess that what you already said is a classical innovation dilemma, right? Especially this part about isolation, working in isolation.
Yeah, and actually, I've been thinking about it lately a lot, actually, because we still need to do a lot of innovation. And one of the problems we have is with such a big customer base is that you also need to care for backwards compatibility, right? And these two are kind of enemies, right? If you want to innovate quickly, you can't make everything backwards compatible. And maybe some of your customers don't care. They just need innovation, even if they have to pay a bit of migration to it. And I guess that's also really an interesting dilemma, I would say, and to find the right balance.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's as you said, it could be not that much important for the new starters, but for established companies, it's very important. And as enterprise, it's much easier to actually provide it. My next question is is related to this one. When start cooperating back with the enterprise, because it's about the adoption. How about the Spartacus adoption? How you see this for Spartacus? Is this classical, bell curve technology adoption cycle where you have this, crossing the chasm situation when you have early adopters and needed to get to majority? How this worked for Spartacus? How it's working for Spartacus? Because I think for enterprise software, those cycles of technology adoption are pretty long, right?
Yeah, I guess enablement is key. The kind of problem you have here is that, I mean, there are two things. So the good thing is all about that customers want to have this. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
So I talked earlier about this this event where I did this initial prototype of Spartacus. We called it Spaccelerator by then. And in the first year, I was talking about it, had some nice slides up on talking about headless architecture and all that stuff. And then a year later, 1 year later, had done a lot of work already on the product and had the same presentation at the same place, actually in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And it struck me that we were, and anyone I was talking to during these 3-day summit, like whether it was a developer or C-level, everyone is totally agreeing on the kind of headless architecture and the decoupled storefront. So I think when you talk about adoption, that is really at our side. Everyone wants this architecture.
Right.
And then it's just a matter, are they going to build their own? Which is totally fine, right? Are they going to use Spartacus? So, and when you want adoption of Spartacus, you just need to have enablement, because we're using this Angular framework as a foundation underneath Spartacus. So that is something we shouldn't necessarily need to enable on. But then you have a lot of framework features we're building in Spartacus as well. The problem, however, is we are in an ecosystem which is still pretty much full of Java developers and companies who were used to deliver Java, and they have been changing already a lot, right? It's not that they have not changed themselves for the last couple of years, but this is still a challenge, I would say. And the other challenge is how good are we at enabling them? So last year I've been traveling around the world and enabled a lot of teams, personally even, because there was no formal organization yet who were doing that.
Yes.
So that's for sure one of the challenges. I think another challenge is that there might still be the impression that JavaScript is simple, but I would say it's not, right? It's pretty complex these days. Not anymore. And like and also if you look at building such a storefront or such a framework, it's actually heavily complex to build it and to use it. And I don't like it, actually. I would like it to be simple, but I do agree that it's actually quite difficult these days. So we need to improve there as well to make it better adaptable.
So that makes perfect sense. So the biggest obstacle for the adoption of Spartacus is actually the skill set the agencies, the merchants are having, and the enablement is so important because of that, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I would like to be honest about it. It also matters how simple do we make it, right, or how complex do we make it.
Yeah,
so there's always something to gain there.
Yeah. That's how designing frameworks differs from designing the apps, I guess. How easy it is to get into.
Totally.
Yeah. Makes sense. What are the future plans for Spartacus?
Where shall I start? I mean, obviously we want to build out features, right?
Yes.
I mean, we if you look back, we had accelerators. So we had a B2C accelerator, B2B accelerators, then a whole bunch of what we call industry accelerators.
Right.
And we want to have feature parity with those accelerators, so we can deprecate them completely. And like the full strategic focus is on Spartacus. And currently, for example, we're building B2B capabilities in Spartacus.
Right.
And that's a big thing at the very moment. But then on the other hand, we have like a lot of architectural features, which is mainly where I'm concerned with. So we're initially we started with what we call this so-called layered architecture, with a kind of a core layer and then a component layer and a style layer.
Yeah.
And we're moving actually at the moment towards a feature architecture that have like a my account feature module versus let's say a product feature module. Because this works much better when you talk about scalability and when you talk about other teams want to join this, because all teams need to add a bit of core, a bit of component, a bit of style. So it's much more logical to move this into feature modules.
So the module will be much more granular, right? And you can enable only the features you like to use, more or less.
Which is also today the case, but it will be much more natural then. And also there are some technical challenges with the current architecture. There's other things. We have this extensibility concept in Spartacus, which, as we are a library, it's super important, right? That you can change and replace and amend everything. But we want to do this much more fine-grained. So currently our CMS components are the granularity level we have in place. But we actually want to do this for every button in Spartacus, for example, or every element. Still having the upgrade path available. And we've been, we have this small team who's doing catch-ups every week, and we've been talking about this quite a few times. But yeah, we have now a fake plan, let me put it like that, in place to go into a certain direction. But this is an important one. We have an event system which we built early this year, but we're not using it everywhere. So we want to leverage this more and more. And I think this is also key to decouple the features better. That's actually funny. It's kind of similar to what we do with the monolith to microservices. That in Spartacus is soon becomes also a monolith with a central state management database, right? And here's the same thing going on. You want to break it up in features and then have an event system to share your state, basically, to distribute the need. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, so these are important things for the future.
Looks like a lot of work to do in the upcoming.
It's a lot of work.
That's very interesting work to do. That's perfect. Thank you for taking time for this interview as well. Thank you.
This was fun.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
Thanks, Piotr. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the CTO-CTO podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe, and we'll be back with some amazing content next week.